everyone. I am back today with another math lesson. Today we are learning about two-step algebraic equations. So your one-step ones are due today, and now your two-step questions are due on Friday. So I have already marked the people that have sent me their math questions. I highly encourage you to wait until I have marked your questions to make sure that you did your one-step equations correctly, because if you don't understand one step, two-step won't work for you either. So get those questions into me as soon as you can so that I can get them back to you, and then you can begin doing this stuff. All right, so the title for today is two-step equations. All right, so that is what we are learning about. So again, I'm starting with the same point that we wrote down with our one step because the goal is ultimately the same. You need to isolate the variable by performing the opposite operation. So some of you might wonder, since these are two steps, which step do I start with? So I'm going to add one more point here. You start with, I'm just going to call it the easy to eliminate number. I'll explain that in a minute. And in brackets, this means the number that isn't directly attached to the variable. Okay, so start with the easy to eliminate number, which means the number that isn't directly attached to the variable. So I'm going to jump into an example and then I will explain what this means. It will make more sense to you with numbers in front of you. You can see that perfectly. Good. Alrighty, so I'm going to erase this. If you need, pause right now. Okay, so question one, example one, 2 multiplied, oh no, sorry. Don't worry about that. -1 plus x divided by 2 equals -2. This is your question, okay? So your ultimate goal is to find the value for x. That is your variable. That is what we don't know. And again, it could be x, it could be y, it could be m, it could be d, any letter. This one is an x. So we need to get rid of a couple of things right now that are around the x. So what I mean by starting with the number that isn't directly attached, it's a little bit hard to explain, but see, you have here -1 plus x, and then you have a divide by 2 below everything. Well, start with, in this case, start with the divide by 2, okay, because that one's easiest to eliminate. So it's the one that's not directly attached to the x. It kind of is because you are dividing it by 2, but it's on its own, all right? So it's on its own. We're going to deal with the number that's on its own. So the opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying by 2. So which is why when I originally wrote this, I had a big 2. I already skipped ahead. So now we want to multiply by 2. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. Okay, so I put this all in brackets because I'm not just multiplying this little guy by 2. I'm actually multiplying the entire thing by 2, which will eliminate the two 2's, because when you divide everything by 2, that's why it's all under the bracket. When you divide everything by 2 and then you multiply everything by 2, it's like you didn't do anything at all. So now we just have -1 plus x equals -2 multiplied by 2. So this is where your dopey man comes in handy again. You have a negative and you have a positive. So you want to cover up one negative and one positive, and you are left with a negative. That means your answer is going to be a negative. So -2 multiplied by 2 is 4, -4. All right, so now this is a single step, a one-stepper. Okay, so now we can just easily look and say, oh, okay, now we have one more number to deal with. We still don't know what x is yet, but we have a -1 that's attached to it. So we are going to add 1 to both sides. So now I am left with just x. -4 plus 1 is -3. So this is my answer, okay? So 1 step, 2 steps, answer. That's why it's a 2-step equation. We still want to check our work to make sure that we did it properly. So over on the right, I'm just going to put check. And it's actually really interesting because checking your work, as I have mentioned, it proves your work was correct, and you can verify what mark you are going to get on your assignment or your test. So I just think that's pretty cool, and it's worth the extra work. It's also necessary and required by me, but it's worth it regardless because you know what answer you're going to get. You know if you're going to get it right or wrong. So you always start by writing down your original equation. All right, so there it is. Now, instead of writing x, we write the value for x. So -1 plus -3, divide everything by 2 equals -2. Okay, now we need to simplify. So now, what is -1 plus -3? You're adding more negative, so you're going further to the left, so that is -4. Okay, so we just simplified that fraction, okay? We couldn't simplify over here originally because you can't simplify a letter and a number. You can simplify here because they're two numbers, okay? So that equals -2. So -4 divided by 2 equals -2. Pull out your dopey man again. I would recommend just writing him in like the top of all of your pages that you're working on so that it's easy, it's right there for you. Like on mine, for example, you can see that I have the dopey man right there. Okay, so you have a negative being divided by a positive. And again, dopey man, you can only use this trick for dividing and multiplying, all right? So since we are dividing here, it works. So a negative and a positive, cover that up. You know your answer is going to be negative. How many times does 2 go into 4? Goes in twice. Hey, look at that, it worked. -2 equals -2. Give yourself a literal check mark. You know your check worked, therefore you know you got your answer correct. So x equals -3, this is the answer. Let's do another one together. So -2n plus 10 equals 28. So again, 2 steps. We want to start with the number that is kind of on its own. It's not directly attached to the n. So right here you can see these are directly attached. This one, yes, n plus 10, you do have to deal with it, but it's easiest to just get rid of it because it's kind of on its own right now. So we are going to -10. We're doing the opposite of what it says. Plus 10, we want to get rid of it, so we're going to -10. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So now we simplify. Now we have -2n equals 18. And let me just say quickly, the more you do of these, the easier it becomes to recognize where to start and what to do. It's honestly hard for me to put it into words exactly where to start because, yeah, you want to start with the number that's kind of on its own, but it's not really on its own because it is, you know, with this guy. But once you start to just do it more, you will understand what I mean, and you'll just be able to recognize it, right? It's not wrong, let me tell you this right now, it is not wrong if you choose to divide everything by 2 first to get rid of this. Not by 2, by -2, sorry, because you have to, that's there too. It's not wrong if you start with that, you'll get the same answer in the end, but then you're just doing more work. So I'm just trying to help you recognize the easy way to go here. Okay, so this is how we've simplified it. Now we are going to divide by -2. Okay, -2 divided by -2. Again, if you look at your dopey man, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. 2 goes into 2 once, so that just leaves us with 1n, or just n. 18 divided by -2, you have a positive and a negative, so we are left with a negative answer. 2 goes into 18 9 times. So -9 is your answer. So let's check to make sure we got it right. So write your original equation down, and now plug in what you know. So we know that n is valued at -9 now. So rather than writing n, I'm going to write -9 plus 10 equals 28. All right, back to your dopey man. You have a negative and a negative, so your answer is going to be positive. 2 times 9 is 18 plus 10 equals 28. So 18 plus 10 is 28. So 28 equals 28. Give yourself a check mark because it balanced, right? So that is just such a cool way of recognizing that you've got the right answer for your value of n. I just think that's pretty cool. All right, we're gonna do one more example together. And again, if you are still listening to me, these 3 examples that we are doing right now are from the worksheet that is due on Friday. Okay, so you have 3 questions that you already have completed. So lucky you. Third and final example. 7 equals 3 plus m divided by 2. Okay. I chose this example because the variable is on the right-hand side of the equal sign. Does that matter in how you answer the question? It does not make any difference, so no. If you would like to reverse these, you could write it as that instead. It literally means the exact same thing, okay? So it does not matter. We're gonna leave it as is, just to help you recognize something new. So now, this is a really good example because you're starting with the number that's on its own, right? It's not attached. The easy to eliminate number, as I have called it. So, okay, where to start here? To me, I recognize that this 3 is all on its own, right? You have this one being divided by the 2, okay? This whole thing is not being divided by 2. If the whole thing was being divided by 2, well, that changes things, but it's not. So this guy is very easy to eliminate. Right now he's being added to the m plus 3, or 3 plus m. So we're just gonna easily eliminate him by subtracting. So -3 minus 3. So now let's simplify. So 4 equals m divided by 2. Okay, so that really, hopefully you can see how much simpler this looks now, right? All we had to do was get rid of one number. Now we've got a single step question. So now we have m divided by 2. Well, we want m all by itself. So the opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying by 2. So I'm just gonna put the whole thing in brackets because we're multiplying everything by 2, okay? I could do this, multiply that by 2, and then multiply that by 2. I mean, now that I've done it, maybe I'll leave it. But you could just put the whole thing in brackets, say I'm multiplying everything by 2, and just write 2 once. All right, so now we know that these 2 2's cancel out, okay? So now what's 2 times 4? 8 equals m. Isn't that crazy? Like that is so much easier, like walking through it. Step 1, step 2, answer. Now we're gonna check it. So check my original 3, oopsies, equals 3 plus m divided by 2. We know m is 8, so on my next line I am going to simplify. I can simplify even further now by what is 8 divided by 2? How many times does 2 go into 8? Well, it goes in there 4 times. So 7 equals 7, and it worked for you. So I just think that is pretty cool. I am debating right now if I want to show you how this would work if you didn't start by subtracting the 3, if you started by getting rid of the divide by 2. You know what, I'm going to do it because you're going to get the same answer. So it's not like it would be wrong. Like I said, it's just going to take you a little bit more work. So I don't even have notes for this. So let's try this together, class. Okay. So what was our answer? It was 8. So I'm just going to write that down. And let's see if we get the same thing. We definitely should. So let's see if we do it right. Okay, so here was our question. Let's say you were like, well, I don't really know which one's easy to eliminate. I'm just going to start with the divide by 2. So I know that I have to multiply everything by 2. So multiply everything by 2. Okay, or you could multiply this side by 2 and then multiply by this by 2, but same thing. So, okay, you know what, I am gonna write it differently just because it's gonna make more sense to you. Multiply this side by 2, multiply this side by 2. Okay, 2 times 7 is 14. Okay, so this is the next step in grade 8 algebra. It's called the distributive property. So when you have a 2 outside the bracket like this, yes, these two 2's cancel each other out, but this guy actually needs to be multiplied by 2 as well. So you have to distribute the 2 to go to both of these sections inside the brackets. So you are left with 6 plus m. Okay, so because these 2 canceled out, but you still had to multiply the 3 by 2. So now it's relatively straightforward, right? We've done our work. Now we have a single stepper. Now we have m plus 6 or 6 plus m. So we're going to subtract the 6 to eliminate it to get m all by itself. And I'm going to subtract 6 from this side as well. Well, 14 minus 6 gives us, I did my math right, 8. 8 equals m. And did it match? Hey, look at that, it did. Okay, so you would then do your check and your check would be identical. All right, so that's just to prove to you that no matter where you start, you will get the same answer. But like I said, this is kind of the next step of algebra where you have to multiply the outside bracket by everything inside of it. So some of you might get that right away. Some of you maybe aren't quite ready for that yet, and that's totally fine, okay? We will get there next week, so you can look forward to that. But anyways, that's just proof of the pudding that it doesn't matter where you start in algebra. If you do the same thing to both sides, you will get the right answer, and then you can check it and verify it. So that's the beauty of this unit, and that is why I love it so much. So go check out the questions. 3 of them are done for you, but I still want to see your work and your answers, and they're due on Friday. Have a great rest of your week.